Alrighty, well, I'm going to stop here because I want to tell a little story about this place. This is a scrapyard that I used to go to. I don't know who owns this now, but I was friends with the guy who owned it, and I used to come here quite often. I'm not going to go past the gate because, like I say, I don't know who owns it now. Some of this stuff was here back then. That's an old Dodge school bus, Dodge minibus from the 50s. That was a plumber's van there. Back in there, that's a 58 Ford. Those were here when I was here. A lot of old cars were kept here. Looks like somebody might be still doing some scrap here. Anyway, the story I'm going to tell, though, is I was here one time taking parts off a car, and there was, at the back of the lot there were cars piled up pretty high, one on top of the other. And the job ended up taking longer than I thought it would. And so I was back around there at the time, right back in there, taking parts off this car. And it started to get dark. By the time I finished the job, it had gotten nearly dark. It wasn't dark, but it was dusk, basically. So I'm packing up all my tools to leave, and I felt like somebody was watching me. You know, you just get that feeling like you're being watched, you know. And I turned around, I looked over my shoulder, I turned around, and right beside the big pile of cars, there was a shadow. Looked like a man. It was in the shape of a man, but it was just a shadow. There were no features or anything. It was just a silhouette of a man, the shadow of a man. And when I turned around and looked at him, he turned and he walked into the pile of cars, disappeared. And that's the story anyway. Years ago, this property used to be a lot lower, and they filled it in. They topped it up. They bought a bunch of soil in and filled it in. But underneath this, there's still a bunch of 40s and 50s cars because they used them as fill. Rather than haul them out or whatever, they just kept them, you know, and they just went over top of them. So there's actually a bunch of 40s and 50s cars buried underneath this yard. Just of the ones that aren't still there on the ground. There was a really neat old school bus back in there in the woods, and it was outfitted with tracks like a snowmobile, which was really neat. It was made to go across the snow, I guess. It was actually outfitted with tracks. The wheels had been removed, and it was outfitted with tracks. It was an old school bus from the 1940s, and it was an old school bus from the 1940s, and it had been turned into a camper. But the wheels had been removed, and it had been fitted with tracks like a snowmobile. But big tracks, though, you know. Anyway, that may still be back there for all I know, but I'm not going to go trespassing. There was a time when I knew the owners here and I could go on the property. I know that the man has passed away. His wife might still be here. I don't know. This is the house they lived in right here. I don't know who's around now, but anyway, that's it. I don't know if she's still alive or not, but I know he's passed away. And like I say, I'm not going to bother her if she's still there, and I'm not going to just take it upon myself to go in there. All right, bye for now.